Hey man, if you ain't calling about What podcast, man, don't call, man. Kurt,
I'm
what's up,
here
brother?
to call about the Patreon subscription for the WOTPod. Do you think you can help me out?
Yeah. We need that. We need that going on,
What do you mean? What's the details on that thing? How do I find that? Do you know?
dude. I just work here.
You're like, I don't even know where that thing's at.
I
Well,
just work.
start off
I
is
just work here.
probably in the link in our description here, the link in our bio. You can do it at patreon.com/wattpod. Support the podcast.
Because
Promote
without the
and
support,
help the evolution of the way of the technician to grow beyond the screen in front of you. We're growing this thing, whether it's a subscription on YouTube or subscription on Patreon, both help us, both push us forward, and we really appreciate you taking the time to watch today's episode.
100%, guys. And also, guys, we are making an Instagram account as well, and possibly a Facebook account, because I feel like you guys need to interact with us one to one together at the same time. And we would like to build an army of y'all so y'all can attack every trash technician out there and help them view our channel so they can become a super technician. But
Super technicians. Speaking of
speaking
super
about super
technicians,
technicians,
the guest we have for the episode
uh-huh.
is, what did you call him? PBB? Is that what he called himself? PBB?
Yes sir, PBB.
Perfect performance Brandon. So we'll
Yes.
jump right into it and get started.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back at it again. Another episode of the WOT Podcast, starring the best co-host duo. You already know Curtis is right here. Me, Jalid. We have a wonderful guest today, a Porsche technician. Brandon, thank you very much for being on here. How are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. It's Porsche. You gotta get the at the end,
I knew
bro.
that was coming. I knew it was coming.
I'm a Toyota guy. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we'll be a tip top Toyota guy, and you gotta get the It's Porsche. So
Porsche. There we go.
yes,
There we
sir.
go.
Well, Brandon, tell us a little bit about yourself. I did some research on you, and I know just kind of your background. But for people watching, just tell us a little bit about how you got started in the industry and where you're at now and what you're doing.
So I'm actually a third generation Porsche tech. I'm second generation Porsche technician, third generation Porsche in the dealership. My grandfather was with Porsche in Chicago, starting in the '60s, doing sales. That's where where his daughter met my father. He was in service as a technician in the '70s and '80s. He moved. They didn't want me to be raised in the city in Chicago, so we moved to good old Arkansas, which people want to bash it, but actually, I mean, if you've ever been to like the woods and everything, or like any doing the outdoor stuff, Arkansas is a terrific place, and we actually have a dealership there now in Little Rock. But they moved there, and then I kind of had my life set and was going, and I had grew up in the shop with him working on cars. We were doing the Fast and Furious long before Fast and Furious was ever even a thing, and that's where Perfect Performance came from. His shop was called Perfect Performance, which is where the PP and the PP&B comes from. So I grew up in the shop doing that stuff forever. Kind of got my whole life thing going, and it did not involve working on cars. It involved working on cars as a side project for fun, which I think is maybe the better way of doing it, because when you're just doing it in your garage or in your buddy's garage, or kind of doing it at your own speed, it's a little more enjoyable, I think, which kind of leads us to where we are now with me, at least. Kind of had my life set up, and then the Great Recession hit in 2008, and I decided, I had always said that I was going to go and go to UTI in Houston and start working on cars. And when that happened, I lost my job, and I was actually able to get some assistance in going to college or school, technical school, and I did that. I had experience with cars, but that was the quickest fast track basically to getting into Porsche, because Porsche doesn't necessarily just or the dealerships, at least around here for sure, I don't just let everybody in, So I wanted the best chance possible. I had a daughter at that point in time that was 4 years old, and I had my wife, and I did not want to take and move my entire family and do all that, and end up failing. So I figured that was the best way to get everything set up. Long story short, made it into Porsche. Lived in Atlanta for 6 months, going to the PTAP Academy, Porsche Technician Apprenticeship Program. That's back when they only had it in Atlanta. Now they actually have it at all the different training facilities. Did that for 6 months. Then got out of there and ended up getting a job back here in Houston at Porsche West. And then I worked at Porsche West for 2 years, and then moved over to Porsche North, where I am now. And I've been with Porsche North since 2013. So we're coming up on 13 years with Porsche North. So
Congrats.
that's kind of where I got everything going, So
Yeah, I remember seeing the PTAP program when I was in UTI, and it was like this mystical creature. I know all the technicians were shooting for it, and it was one of those things. I think 2010. I think is they were only letting like one or two techs in every like semester or cycle of technicians. So I didn't know you tuned to PTAP. That's awesome, man.
yeah, so
Congratulations on
that's
that. That was
actually that's right around the time that I got in, and I actually had to get in the way excuse me the way my graduation class worked. When they approved me to go, I only had I would have had like a month, less than a month or a month, less than a month to be able to prepare and leave my family and go live for 6 months in Atlanta. And so that wasn't enough time, I felt, to kind of set things with my daughter. My daughter she was about to start kindergarten. I wanted a little more time, so I requested, and I opened the interview with them, because you do have to interview with Porsche high up, the head of service and all that. You do have to interview with them and kind of give them a rundown, or you did then. It's changed now, I believe. But then, like you're saying, it was a pretty in depth, pretty hardcore thing. So I interviewed. I was approved for it, but I actually asked the guy. I said, "Hey, look." I was like, I need a little more time to get prepared for my family. I explained my whole family situation. I was like, if you do approve me, I would request to be able to go to the next class, which would give me 6 months to get prepared. He approved it, and then in that 6 month period, he got a promotion, and they brought in a whole different head of service. And thankfully, they emailed me, but he told me that he had explained to this guy what was going on. But that guy wanted to interview me also and make sure that he felt that I was good for the position. So
program.
not only
Yeah.
did I have to interview the first time and get accepted, I then waited and interviewed with a whole different person in the Porsche thing, got accepted again, and then ended up, moving to Atlanta for 6 months and doing all that. So I thought I was done with that, like super stressful, whole
Imagine.
situation, and then they get to told. And I hadn't been to UTI. I had to do that like a month, 2 months before I went. So I had to go back to UTI. I hadn't been to UTI in like 4 or 5 months. I had to do, I put on the whole suit and the tie and everything, and showed back up at the UTI, and had to go back in and do the in-person interview again. So, it is what it is, man, but it worked, and that's, it worked out for me. And that's what I tell people all the time. I mean, a lot of people bashed UTI when I moved here, and, I coming from a completely different state, and only dealing with the people on the phone and everything. I'm thinking this is like, the super college of cars. And then I get here, and everybody's like, you're an idiot. Like, what are you doing? Like, everybody I know, has failed, or, hasn't gotten a job out of it. But just like everything, man, it is what you make out of it. I went to college. I got accepted. I was a recruited walk-on to play football in college, and I went and I partied my way out. So, if you party your way out of UTI, then you're gonna, obviously you're gonna be a failure. But if you go in and, like, promote or put yourself to it, just like anything, But yeah, I felt like it got a lot of bad flack. But there are people for sure. Like I said, I did well. You did well, obviously. If you went through UTI, so
He's,
you get out of it what you put into it. So.
yeah, he sent me something. Jay sent me something the other day just about this. What did you send me? It was like
Right,
a
it was
clip.
someone. It was someone dissing UTI, saying every UTI technician is the stupidest thing on earth. Can't tell alternator from a control arm. And I was like, Curtis, you gonna let this slide? You gonna let him say
I was
this?
like, there is some people there that don't put in the effort, but then you get, the 5% that really put in the effort, put in the time, and they get into great positions like you're in, I'm in, and I'm sure plenty of other people are in. So like you said, you get what you put in. And I think something I wanted to ask you was I know you were the shop foreman of your store, and then you got into what you're doing now is the performance side of things, where I think you're doing what every technician's dream is installing cool parts on Porsches and 911s and things like that. And I'm not going to pretend to know I know all the codes for Porsches. That'd be a lie. I'll embarrass myself. But how did you make that transfer, and what do you love most about it now?
So first of all, I'll definitely throw this out there. I was never the foreman. I was a team lead.
Oh,
There was discussion. I was definitely in the running for that follow up position or the next in line behind the foreman. But I absolutely we don't want to get that out there because there's certain people that may see this that will definitely be all over that. Which, like I said, I know honestly, bro. To me, I don't want to deal with that foreman stuff. I don't. I've turned down multiple offers over even the last year, especially since I got on to Instagram or any of the social media. I've had a couple different dealerships call up and do phone interviews and offer me that position. And for me, it's not me, man. I don't, I'm not interested in that, especially now in this like electric car age, which if you like, yes, I mean, I would take a Taycan for getting around town and doing all that kind of stuff. They're awesome. It's like the future as far as like space cars and doing all that kind of stuff. But dude, like taking a battery out and like pulling it apart and like
sucks.
replacing a cell. To me, it's not that it's hard or it's scary or it's any of this stuff. It's just not enjoyable. It's not something. The other day, I have a smart lock on my front door. My app told me that the battery was low and that I needed to replace the batteries and like recalibrate it. So to me, and I'm not bashing you for doing this or anybody that does this, but to me, that's almost the same. I mean, I had to go in, I had to take the cover off, I pulled the batteries out, I put new batteries in, and I had to go in and calibrate it with my phone. You know, I mean, like that's not. Did it work? Did it go faster? No. Did it work any better? No. It just did what it was supposed to do. You know. So for me, that's kind of the difference between like the performance work or the track work, and then like your daily car use, like the Cayennes and the Panameras and any of that stuff. As far as Porsches go, it is a Porsche. They are pretty cool, but they're not to me. I grew up like I was saying. I've been my whole family is car fanatics. I grew up. Everybody in my family has motorcycles, has like built drag cars. They have muscle cars. Like we're not one of those families where you see these. I see all this stuff on Instagram all the time. When you're at the family get together and Jim Bob doesn't know about something or another. That wasn't our family arguments. Our family arguments was like, no, the L78, 396 or 454 was this versus the fucking. I'm sorry, versus the this engine or that engine or like the turbocharged four cylinder isn't a real engine in comparison. Like all the arguments were performance arguments and car building arguments and drag car versus circuit car and all that kind of stuff. So for me, that's that's the passion, man. I have the passion. I'm passionate about building these cars, and even if I don't put an exhaust on them or do something like that, making them faster. When my guys and my clients will go to Coda, they'll go to MSR, they'll go out to Dallas, and they'll call me on Sunday, and they ran, just insert number here. Don't take my numbers as anything, but like, at Coda, like they ran a two, like a 240 or 250, and then the following week, or whatever they run, like a 240 or something like that, or even just a second or a half of a second or a quarter of a second. They're excited about that, and that makes me excited. Anything we can do on the cars to change the cars around, and like, it makes it better or it makes it worse, and you have to kind of figure out what it takes to make these cars. And it's every car's not the same, and every customer's not the same. I can take three GT3 RSs, 901.2 GT3 RSs. Every car, if we gave them the exact same alignment and set the same driver to the same track or the different driver to the same track, they're all going to have different results. So, kind of
Yeah.
working with the people, figuring out what makes them comfortable, what their car responds to, and all that is kind of what makes I enjoy that part of it far more than every single Panamera needs to have this reprogram done on it. To me, that's okay. Awesome. I get to go hit a button and watch the computer like do this reprogram on 100 different Panameras.
I like to
It's
be
kind of
hands
where
on.
yeah, like I like and I love talking to the customers, man. Like I said, I like hearing them excited about the cars, and that's what I really love with like the GT cars, the sports cars, the two doors, is those people are the passionate people. Those are the ones that can tell me they know more than me about. They'll correct me on some historical part of Porsche. Which that's the thing that I love is like it's they're so into it. And they don't just have GT3. They'll have a Turbo S to go like do straight line speed and do all that stuff. They'll have a GT3 to go to the track. They'll have a Cayenne Turbo GT for getting the family around. Like these people don't buy. They're not like, oh, that's just my Porsche, or whatever. Like the ones I deal with are like fanatical, like I am about the brand. So and that's what I love about it.
Whoa, that's a lot of information, brother.
Dude, this is. I'm sorry. I thought you said when I start talking, like I said, this is just the way. Like it just starts going. So
Well, you could tell you're passionate about it. And I think, I know for me as a dealership technician, sometimes the passion for cars is withers away because I'm the dealership life kind of sucks the life out of you in a way sometimes. And so it's like exciting to hear about it because I'm like, oh, I wish that was me. I wish I was that excited and that involved in doing stuff that I love that much and not having to deal with as much of the dealership life type stuff that that most of us do. So it's exciting to hear that. I'm like, oh, I want to get my hands dirty, and whether it's Audis, Porsches, or whatever, just cars in general. So, I mean,
And coming from Audi, I mean, Curtis's Audi, that's still pretty cool compared to Toyota. I mean, I'm fours and Tundras and freaking Corolla Crosses all day. I mean, that's what I see. There's no really cool in it. And to be a super technician, you got to go to school and stuff, and they no longer make the class, so I don't get to work on cool cars. I might get a freaking a GR Corolla, but that's like really about it, guys. So I mean, just yeah, to see you be all hype about it, naming engine designs, naming this, that, like I'm jealous, man, because ain't no way a customer gonna come in talking about, hey, can you install this custom exhaust on my 2020 RAV4? It's like no one's gonna say that. They're gonna say, can you do my recall?
yeah, and that's coming from like your side of it. I wouldn't be in it. I probably wouldn't be in it. So you're better than I am. Because if I was doing that kind of stuff on a consistent basis, I would have not. I would have left. Because honestly, I remember. So my dad, I did grow up around Porsches. I did grow up around a lot of. So I mean, I was in my prime when like the Japanese cars were in their prime. I had an FDRX7, I had a WRX, I had CRX SI that I did an engine swap to. I had a bunch of DSMs. That's where I learned how to build engines.
Man, you sound like
Really
you're still
build.
in your prime, brother.
I mean, that's I learned. I was telling some guy the other day. We were laughing because I was talking about tuning off a knock because we used to tune off a knock on those really early computer systems,
What do you
and
mean?
you just start turning up the boost and pulling out or increasing timing and pulling out fuel
Okay.
until the car starts to knock. You tune off a knock.
Mm,
So I was telling one of these guys, and the funny story that one of my first DSMs, which is like your Eclipse, your Laser, your Talon, 1989 to 1998. Everybody knows it for the Fast and Furious was the 2GB. That was the Fast and the Furious, Paul Walker car. But I had the early cars, and I could go on for hours about this stuff too. But anyways, one of my first cars, man, I put a bigger turbo on it. I did not increase the size of the fuel system. I just put a bigger turbo on it because that was all the money that I had at that point in time. We were running off a 91 octane fuel where I was at. I think an octane booster, could help that out. Does not at all. I'm tuning off a knock, so I'm turning up boost. I'm adding timing. I'm doing all this stuff and not getting any knock, not getting any knock, not getting any knock. All of a sudden, I blow up the engine. I literally blew like a side off of a piston. Well, whenever I disassembled the car, those had one knock sensor, if I remember correctly. It was not. The wire was broken. So this was like or it was split. And this was like OBD1, so it wasn't throwing like check engine lights for like
man.
that basic stuff. So I wasn't getting a check engine light, or who knows? I mean, honestly, it's been so long. The check engine light may have not even been working. Who knows? But so I'm trying to tune off a knock. I'm not getting any knock. I blow the engine up in a while. I'm not getting knocked because my sensor's just not even connected. So that was kind of the early days. And as I tell people now, man, now it's like it's technology now. We're emailing. I'm getting maps. I'm not a tuner by any means. I have basic understanding of it, but I know the people that are well proven in our industry as far as Porsche goes, the ones to trust, and all they do, I just tell them what's going on. I email them, a base file. They email me a map back, and then I put it in with my laptop or with the access port if you're using Cobb, something like that. And I'm telling people now it's hilarious because we're literally just emailing horsepower to each other. When back in the day, you had to have it on a dyno. You had to have the guy with the laptop sitting there looking all crazy, trying to do all this stuff. And then you were making 350 horsepower and you thought that was, insane, or 400 wheel horsepower back in the day. When
Uh-huh.
you guys is like three banger, like little Yaris's are making 400 horsepower now or what, like whatever. It's
Yeah,
just,
bro.
it, it's comical now where we are as far as the horsepower wars and all that kind of stuff. To back in the day, and everybody wants to talk about the 60s and the muscle car, those horsepower wars being the golden age, and they're not even close. I mean, you can take a Honda Civic Si or Type R now, and they're making more power or as much power as like a giant 454 was back in the day. Plus,
Yeah.
they'll get 30 plus miles to the gallon. They'll do it all day long. They're easily drivable. I don't know if you've ever driven any of those old cars. It's the same with the 911s, dude. Anybody that wants an air cooled car, I'm like, have you driven an air cooled car? Because they're terrible. Like, as far as the driving dynamics, trying to get them to start, the emissions, all of that stuff. And so it's funny because you can take that car, like an old 930. That was the everybody's dream car, or that was the original of the really crazy, crazy mainstream Porsches. They're turds, man. Like, they are the most. You floor that car, you floor it in first gear, and I'm not even exaggerating. You wait like 4.5 seconds, and then it comes on boost, and then all of a sudden it takes it like a half a second to hit, like the next, 2 gears. But they're horrible as far as driving dynamics. When I can go take an entry level 718 Cayman now and go literally kill it in like everything, straight line speed, cornering speed, all of that stuff. So it's just, I don't know, it's kind of funny. People's idea of like what's going on, as far as like what was good before and what isn't now. So, but I don't even remember where we started this whole conversation, but I do admire you for being able to stay in it, because I do understand what you guys are saying as far as like, yeah, the dealership, a lot of it can take the life out of you or take the enjoyment out of you and out of what we do. And that's kind of where I started with, because, I think a lot of us got into this because it was something that we did for, in our garage or in our friend's garage, or, even I put a cold air intake on my car, something like that. I
I
don't
did
know of
that.
anybody that, I don't know of anybody that didn't start it, at least for me in my age. Everybody that I know that's really into it or wants to be into it did it from a passion perspective. As far, they built the car because they were wanting to do something enjoyable. It kills me because there are guys, and I won't even lie. Every time a new guy comes into my dealership, and the first thing I talk to them, I said, "Is this a job for you, or is this a passion for you?" Because if it's a job for you, I'm not cool with that. That's not my thing. But if it's a passion, if it's Porsche and you know what the model designations are, even if you don't know all that, but you want to learn, or about at least some of the history or something, where it's more than just you bringing home a paycheck, that tells me that you're going to do a better job taking care of that car for the customer. And you can disagree with me, but if you're passionate, if you love that car, as much as you love the money, or more than you love the money, which in my case, I love the cars more than money, and the money comes with that loving of the cars. That's what I try to tell people: take care of the client, take care of the car, and the money will follow. It will come to you. So the people that are there just there to try to make money off of it, I always kind of like, I don't think that they're going to be as passionate, or maybe do as good a job taking care of the car, which, like I said, I know, Curtis, maybe you don't, because the way you pump out the hours and do all that stuff, I kind of feel like we have two different philosophies on it,
Yeah, I was about to
which
say.
I'm not going to say disagree with how you do it. I can tell you in my shop, and at least the people I've dealt with, nobody even comes close to the hours that you put out. But the ones that do get up there, I always feel that the quality of work is lacking very much. And I'm not saying yours is. Obviously, you're doing a very good job. I mean, you're getting the awards, and you're not. If you were putting out those kind of hours, and having all the bad comebacks and all that stuff, clearly that it would show up. But all those really high hours technicians that I've dealt with, they just didn't have the passion, and usually they were only there for a short period of time, because they would put out like tons of hours for a short period of time, and then the avalanche would come back of just car after car after car, coming back. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah, I think. I mean, I've definitely had that before. I think all of us have had those sprees of comebacks, but it's taken 15 years to try to be able to do both at the same time. And I think you talk about passion, and maybe my passion for cars isn't the same, but I definitely have a passion for I want to say efficiency, almost like how fast can I get this job done in a certain amount of time. And so it's a different type of thing, because I get super involved in that type of how can I fix it right the first time and the fastest possible, not having comebacks. So my brain's working in different ways, and while it might not be that, it's definitely cooking in other ways. But we won't spend too much time on this, but I know that your dealership has a pretty interesting pay plan, which you're not on anymore, but I know that it's kind of a cool pay plan for some people. Do you mind kind of spending a few minutes talking about that?
Yeah, man. I don't, and it's we can't. Me not being on there is kind of I'm like my own like entity there. So I mean, it's one of those things. If they asked me to do what I do now and still be on the pay plan, I would definitely not have any issues with it. And as I was saying, I was never the foreman. I was a team lead. I was a trainer, and I personally promote the team system, which is what we do there. So everybody's hours, and it kills me too. And like I said, to each their own. I feel like I've never met anybody in the middle here. Everybody is either this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, or like this is really amazing, at least in my experience. So
What's
what
the
we
stupidest
do
thing you've
is
heard?
everybody gets 160 hours a week. So everybody's hours go into what they call a pot. I've heard this come from a couple different dealerships. Everybody kind of has different names for it or whatever they want to call everything, but the idea is still basically the same. So all the hours. So your internal team, uh, the foreman's assistants, all those stuff. Everybody's hours go into one pot, and then at the end of the month, each person gets 160 hours because we're basically it's called a guarantee. So you get 160 hours for that month, and then anything that comes beyond that. So then, like I said, don't take my numbers as be all to end all numbers. But you've got 5,000 hours for. So what are we running right now? We're running our shop, and like I said, for a big Toyota or something like that, this may not sound crazy, but we're doing like 5,000 hours a month at our shop, which we are one of the highest flagging Porsche shops in the United States, if not in the world, which I know sounds like I'm exaggerating, but I promise you guys I'm not. Porsche comes to us all the time. We get people coming from other dealerships, other countries. Our
Houston's
dealership
huge.
group actually owns dealers in other countries. Go ahead.
I was just saying Houston's huge. We're the Audi store I'm at's just up like the same. It's one of the biggest in the nation. So
Right. Yeah. And like I
Oh, yeah.
said, for a Toyota or whatever, I mean, I hear about some of these Hondas and stuff, and these hours don't sound high, but they are for like who we are. So you would take whatever's left over at the end of the month, and then that's spread out equally amongst everybody. So usually on average, there's 160 hours that are guaranteed to you. Uh, on average, usually it's another 80 hours, around an 80-hour, as they call it, a bonus. Although I've always had this argument because it's not a bonus; it's the work that we are doing. So then everybody from your bronze guy that's been there for 5 minutes, to the guy like me that's been there. I'm the second longest tenured guy at that dealership, if you don't include the foreman, as far as technicians go. I'm the second longest tenured guy. If I was on the team, we all get the same. So I would get 80 hours. He gets 80 hours. Everybody gets 80 hours. Now, mind you, my gold certification, my pay is substantially higher than what his pay is. And then also they give percentage bonuses. So if you're, over 100%, efficient, you get an extra dollar. If you're over 150% efficient, you get an extra $2. So they give money that way. And then there's also at the end of the year, depending on how long you've been at the dealership, like I've maxed out the additional, they call it the year-end bonus. You get an extra, what is it? I don't like $1.50, something like that, I think, per hour that I ran throughout the entire year. I get paid all of that at the end of the year. So, if I ran, 4,000 hours or something like that, and it's an extra buck 50 or whatever per hour as an additional bonus at the end of the year. So,
nice.
huh?
Just was nice. And I was complimenting you because
Okay.
it's
So and in my opinion, what this kind of goes back to is, as we had just discussed, you have those guys that want to try to like just hammer out a ton of hours. They're not worried about their quality. They're not worried about all that kind of stuff. And that it kind of shuts that down. At the same time, as you and I were discussing before we went on here, at least to me, playing sports. I gotta take everything back to sports. Playing sports my whole life. You got your quarterback, you got a linebacker, you got your offensive tackle. Can I go and play quarterback? Yeah, I can go and throw a ball, but am I going to be as good as somebody that's actually a quarterback? And the answer to that obviously is like no. And anybody that tells you that that's not the answer is just lying to you. So everybody is good at something. Some people are better at electrical. Some people are better at heavy line or want to do it. And what I tried to play into whenever I was a team lead and doing all this, and I used to dispatch too, if you keep it enjoyable, there's people that enjoy doing stuff that other people don't enjoy. There's this guy that does enjoy working on the electric cars, doing batteries, doing electrical, while this other guy does enjoy doing heavy line work, or just insert whatever here. You try to keep. I would try to play to everybody's strengths, and at the same time keep them happy with what they were doing, because that makes the whole shop function as a whole better. If they gave somebody like me a dashboard, I'm going to spend a day bitching about getting a dashboard to do, and then I'm going to spend another day getting pissed off because I can't get to the screws, because I have to be upside down trying to do a dashboard, versus where they give it to this other guy over here, especially like the newer guys and these younger guys. They, I don't know, for whatever reason, they seem to really like enjoy, or at least can do it quickly and not complain. And that's so that would that's kind of how we try to do it there, or did try to do it there, was play into everybody's strengths, because it just like sports. If I do better, if you do better, then I do better. That's the thing, man. Like I want us all to be succeeding equally versus one guy. One guy's getting, a million hours, and then three people around him are pissed off over something. He's getting more services, or he's getting this, or they think he's doing that easy, or something like this. So that's what we try to at least do. Something like services too, when you have a central dispatch, you don't, even when there was people that I wasn't necessarily happy with, or didn't necessarily, they and I weren't the best of friends. It would hurt me to hurt them. So it doesn't make any sense for me to try to keep anything away from them, because if they were open for work and they could do that service and get it knocked out, then I was making more money. Because I hear about this all the time with central dispatch and stuff. Is you got to sit there and you got to kiss everybody's butt and try to keep them happy and make sure you're getting the if you want to get, because he's going to give his buddy this work or that work, and that's the thing that our system tries to avoid there. And I feel like it actually does do a pretty good job of that. At least I was only in the flat rate system for 2 years total before I went into this shop. All my other work was just independent work, and I can tell you, at least in that 2 years, I trained for like a year. Yeah, something. I think I trained for like a year, and then I was actually flat rate for a year. And I can tell you, at least in my experience, that 1 year of flat rate, I got to see it. Because when I was training, I'm like, dude, I'm killing it. I'm making all these hours. I'm doing all this stuff. Well, it didn't occur to me that the guy that was training me was only giving me, tires and services and alignments, because he made his money off of what I did. So
Yeah.
as soon as I'm like, whoa, dude, I'm tracking my own hours. I'm like, I'm killing. I'm making 100 hours a week, or whatever, and I'm like, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do awesome. Go off on my own, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, where did the services go? Where did the, all this stuff? Now it's like recall after recall after recall, and like, oh look, and all of a sudden, like I was telling you, I got a 4-year-old daughter. At that point in time, I got a 4-year-old daughter, a wife. We had just moved here, for not very long, and I'm bringing home 20 hours, 25 hours a week, and I'm freaking out, and that's making me do worse, because I'm so stressed out at work about, am I going to be able to support? I'm not even trying to like buy anything cool. I'm just trying to like survive. So that's how the team system, at least at our dealership, works, and the kind of what it's supposed to work around, and what it's kind of supposed to put everybody on an even, like an equal foot.
Yeah, Jay, what remind me what dispatch system y'all are on?
Yeah, we use CDK, so it kind of just filters into the monitor, and it's going to be in like S100, S200, S300. All the cars are in S100 for our dispatch, and then S10 is express. So it just goes in there, and then you just L your number, you press L, and then your tech number, and it just gives you the next repair order. And the advisors, they control the priority of the car. So obviously, if it's like a big timing cover job on a Tacoma or something that's going to take all day or something, it's obviously going to be the least priority, and we want the hot cases and the waiters up front. So it's a kind of a good system. Kind of, you can find your way around it. A lot of people like to play with the system, find the loopholes, get the gravy, leave the other BS. I mean, any system is breakable, like Reynolds and Reynolds, CDK. I mean, I'm a dispatcher now, so I mean, I try to keep everybody like evenly. But when I was a regular repair tech, I mean, I found the loopholes, and I was like, wait, my dispatcher just grabbed like 6-hour ticket out of the order. What am I gonna get? I ain't about to grab this bull crap. I'm gonna go grab some gravy too. But we try to play.
Yeah, we use that. We're not on CDK now. We were on CDK for a very long time until they got
Until the
hacked.
outage?
Huh?
Until the outage?
Yeah. Well, so we had already started transitioning into Techion before that, or we're in the process of transitioning into Techion. The outage did not help at all. The good thing with us, like I was saying, we were already on a human-based dispatch system. But I can tell you, whenever we had a manager come in that tried to think that they were going to go and change everything, they tried to do the CDK, what you're talking about, the CDK dispatch system. I'm sorry, hold on, my wife's home. They tried to do the CDK dispatch system, and yeah, it took the service riders all of about 5 minutes to figure out how to be able to control where work was going and who they could get it to, and at the same time. And I won't even lie to you, bro. I'm computer dumb. That's why I'm doing this on an iPhone. I never tried to figure out how to like. I never even knew all the CDK controls by the end, man. When these guys, these other younger guys, a lot of them come in. I didn't know like DD and all these like other, all these. Literally, I just want to get an RO. Like back in the day, it was paper. I just wanted to take an RO and I wanted to go get the car, and then I wanted to do whatever it was I needed to do. But I can tell you that yeah, I knew they people anytime somebody tries to change a system or bring in a system, it takes zero time for these people to figure out how to like control that system. Where I feel like on the human based side of it, as far as like dispatching, that is harder to do. But I will tell you that it's not impossible to do, especially if people are oh, this guy's talking to me, he must be my friend. That's the problem. Like when it's all humans, bro. I mean, everything comes down to the human aspect. That's the part that's uncontrollable there. So, and now that we're talking about this, I'm a little interested, and I hadn't even thought about this till now. How AI is going to start playing into, like, say, a dispatch system, because I would assume it would probably learn or want to see. I feel like, at least from my perspective, that you would want like an AI system would be like, okay, if I give this guy this ticket, he gets it done in this amount of time every single time. And it would start to try to promote that or push into that system because
Ooh.
whatever, right? Because whatever they tell you, whatever the dealership tells you, whatever anybody tells you, we all know, you and I, all of us know it's the money, bro. The world revolves
Yeah.
around money. So whatever they say and whatever they try to do, if you could get five guys doing courtesy, if you could get five guys putting out 400 hours a month because they realize that if they give them this job over and over and over and over and over again, that they're making those kind of hours. Tell me that they're going to shut that off. Like they're not going to shut that off.
I
You know,
think
They're gonna
they'll.
promote it. They're gonna
There.
make shows
Well.
happening.
Well, I think it comes an issue where that runs into a problem when you have other technicians in the shop that it creates animosity with, because it's what's easier for someone to do is to tell one person chill out, or to tell the other 30 people, hey, y'all need to be better, y'all need to work harder and learn from this one person. I think that's kind of some problems that happen now in the shop, is you have those high performers that if they gave me all of the one job, how many other people are gonna be like, oh no, what the heck? Why does he only get all those?
Evaporator core. Well, who said that?
Yeah, I mean, these evaporators, whatever it is. I mean,
but like I said, it all comes down to, okay, yeah. Do you want to? And what I hear, and it's kind of funny now because that we've got a Little Rock dealership, we've got a Sugarland dealership, we've got our Houston dealership. People that came up with me, basically, that were service advisors, that they and I worked directly with each other, did all this stuff and spent all this time together. They're now managers at these places, and kind of hearing. And I've been in a relatively good position where I was really friendly with most of the managers. Like I said, as a trainer and a team lead, you kind of know more what's going on in the shop, kind of like as in a foreman position. Not necessarily, I'm not saying to that extent, but it's funny hearing these guys come up, and basically every one of them tells me the same thing: is that most of their time is spent trying to fix people complaining, or that people are upset about exactly what you're saying. But
yep.
here's the thing: like I just said, if this AI system, and I'm not even promoting AI, don't get into that. We kind of went off on
He's
that. But
promoting AI.
even a human or
Flip it.
CDK, if they take, you got 10 people on your team, and I know that's a really low number, but all of a sudden they take five of them and they make five of these guys into putting 300 hours out a month, where they were only putting out 200 before, 180 before. And then those other guys, they still kind of sit at their same number. They don't really move off of that number necessarily. Who's the money talks, bro? The money is what talks. Like, you're telling me like the GM of the dealership is going to come in and sign off on, like, okay, these guys are complaining, but we've also increased the hour output of the shop, and we've increased the hours that all these other guys, half the team, is putting out, or more. Which do you think that they're going to be more inclined to promote, is the way I look at it. No, I know we didn't even start here or start on this, and this isn't even really kind of what my thing is, but I'm just looking at it, being where I've been put now. It's kind of funny to see it from the outside and like look in, watch what's going on, and just kind of see the changes being made, and see, and dude, like I said, I don't care who or what or your company or anything. Money is, and the people that don't start off, and not even in our fit line, just in general, everybody that starts off not being worried about the money, I guess I could even say it about me. Anybody that starts off not being worried about the money, it usually ends up being down the line, because that's what controls our lives. It's what makes the money, and not necessarily money to buy cool cars or money to do this, but money to survive. So I don't know. I'm interested now in seeing. I can promise you, because they just implemented, our dealership group just brought in like this AI development team that was like ran Tesla and did all this other
Well,
stuff, and there's some
they're
kind of
gonna
like,
clone
I don't,
you. They're
huh?
gonna clone you, Brandon. They're
Bro,
gonna clone you, and then
I
you're
doubt they
gonna
would
be
clone
jobless.
me. I doubt they would clone me. I cause too many problems. I promise that. There's definitely some people they would clone, but no, it's interesting because now, like, I don't know how they're doing it with you guys. So now they brought in this AI program, and it's supposed to make it basically where we don't have to even diagnose, and I'm not supposed to say that. It's supposed to help us with the diagnosis. But you know how everybody that doesn't do a technician job thinks that all we do is plug in our computer and hit a button and it tells us exactly what's wrong with the car? That's all it takes to fix a car, right? We just plug in, ours is the Pevis. I don't know what Toyota and I don't know what Audi is, but
Yeah,
I
you
know,
need an
I'm
O2
sure.
sensor.
Huh?
You need an O2 sensor. It says it right here.
Yeah.
That's all
Well,
you need to
it's
replace.
a bank one, sensor one.
Yeah.
It says at 3 o'clock yesterday afternoon that, or whatever, but now we're even beyond that. There's so many computers. But basically, like, this program they're bringing in, it's watching what everybody puts into the system, what they're putting in as the repair, and then it watches for that ticket to be a comeback within a certain period of time. And then it starts incorporating that into, say, so now, said, I bring in a 2021 911 Turbo S with the check engine light with, PO 272 or something. And it says, okay, well, the last 20 times we've seen this, this has been the fix, and it's fixed it every time. So as soon as that car comes in, the RO is already in the AI system. We tell it what the check engine light number is, and it goes through its system and basically spits out and says, hey, check this, because 99%, 99% of the time, this
Yeah,
has
we
been
have
the
that.
issue. Yeah, do what?
We have that. It's a Volkswagen. It's the Volkswagen Auto Group thing because Audi has that too.
So we have that, and I was going to say, I assume that through. So we have that through Porsche, but
Yeah.
this is like an even more advanced system than what that is. It plays
Okay.
off of that, and they got approval from Porsche. We're one of the dealership groups that they're starting this system out in. So you may be getting this before long. They got approval from Porsche. Porsche has bought a part of this company, and they're using this as, I know what you're talking about because it's the same with us. They'll give you like five things and like, this is what people think it, or this is what we've seen or whatever. This is supposed to be the whole new, whatever, the future, the new AI version of that. And basically, now the one thing I will tell you that I liked, and I have not been able to use it, and we'll see. So hypothetically, if everybody had done this job and done this job correctly, and actually it's supposed to be able to read directions also and tell you, so it can see what hardware and what seals and all this stuff. It's supposed to feed that into the parts department. So since we started using Audi engines, you guys with your amazing vacuum systems that get filled with coolant, that job,
Oh,
it's
oh, nice.
supposed to tell it, we wouldn't even have to go to the parts department and tell them all the parts we need. It's supposed to automatically make a file and ship that, like, basically send that file to the parts department, and like, okay, this RO is this problem, and this is, and not even based off of what people are ordering, but based off of what Porsche or Audi says, how they say, like, replace these bolts, replace this, gasket,
Yeah.
replace these O-rings. It's supposed to be able to see all of that and then just give, like, tell parts, or even, I guess it don't even have to tell parts. I guess it talks to its like AI T2000 counterpart over there, T2 counterpart that's like taking over the world. It
Bro, you
tells
making it
them,
sound like Houston on Mars, brother. I don't know
bro,
what's going on.
this is not me. I just put on exhaust systems and do alignments. You're talking to the wrong guy. I can do oil changes sometimes. But
Sometimes.
no. So this is what they came in. Yeah, we had to go through like meetings with these guys and everything, and this is the future. But it's supposed to be, like, it's being incorporated as we speak, and we're one of the flagship dealers for it. Now, one of my buddies that's a team lead over at Subaru by us, Curtis. That Subaru. What is that? What's that
Gilman.
little super? Oh, actually, he's not with. He's in that same group. Yeah, he is at that one. The Subaru that's over there by us. That's over by
Gilman.
like the Acura dealership. What?
Yes, Gilman.
Yeah, yeah. So they brought in like robots to like deliver parts and stuff. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen
Yeah. So
that. We
they
don't
didn't.
have it, but I've seen it.
So he showed me a video. They ended up not getting it, but this little robot was driving around and it was playing Metallica, Master of Puppets. The robot was playing Metallica, Master of
Master.
Puppets, as it drove around. Yeah, and it was dropping off parts to the guys. I thought that was kind of funny, but he said that it drove like right out in front of a car that was trying to like leave the shop and stuff. He said they had a lot of problems with it, and that's one of the reasons they didn't pay for it. But I don't know. It's kind of it is kind of crazy, like the direction all of this is going, especially if you're older or old like me and you saw, where it's all back in the day. I mean, when I first started, we were doing timestamps with an actual clock. Like you had to go into the break room and
Punch
like
it.
put a
Yeah.
little card
Like
into the
slide your
clock
paper
and
in.
ka-cock. Yeah. Yeah. So if you needed to go like roll back time or you needed to like have more time on your RO, there was a way, that you could advance or, move the clock back and change your punches around. So
Whoa.
yeah, computers, dude. It's the end of the world. Computers.
Hey, you're talking about AI, but there's something that is really cool. I wanted to ask you about. I was talking to Jay with it about it just earlier before you got on. Is the classic, the Porsche Classic thing, the competition that you commandeered for the company last year?
Right.
I just,
Yeah. So
I mean,
so
that
Porsche.
seems like such a cool experience.
And it goes back to what we were talking about, heritage, man. I mean, and there's a lot of companies, even Toyota, I believe, is doing, aren't they
Yeah.
re-releasing like the 2JZ blocks? I think they're getting into like some of this like AE86, like the older parts.
Yeah.
I know Nissan, they're redoing RB25, RB26. They've got a program now where they're redoing. You can send the cars back to the factory, I believe, and they'll completely redo the skylines. So Porsche, is big in that. And actually, I was one of the very first classic certified technicians in the entire world when they started this program off, and that was in like 2017, I think, if I remember correctly. I basically lived in California for like 2 months and went to like class after class after class for the certification when they were first doing it. They had these guys come in from Germany, Uwe, and it doesn't matter, I don't remember his name, but they were awesome. One of the guys, he had actually, I don't know if you know, like the 917 race car. They basically, it's the winningest race car in like the history, not just Porsche, but like history. They actually changed rules to a lot of racing groups and stuff because of this car. He was on the development team for that car. He developed like the fuel injection system and stuff. So it was pretty awesome, like dealing with these guys and them coming in and them having literally known like the Porsche family and been there in the early days. And it was pretty funny too, because he would grab like say something was dude. Okay, so Porsche, they don't like stick with any kind of sizing, at least back in the day, especially the air cooled stuff. Nothing makes any sense, man. It's a 10, 11, a 12, a 13, a 14, a 15, a 22, a 24, 25. It does, like, everything is just all these different random ass sizes. So he grabs like, I don't, he was working on the fuel system and the car was like running and he's like trying to tighten it down, I think. And he grabs like a 17, and it's like, I think it was supposed to be a 16 and it's like just tight enough. And he's like, oh, whatever, that'll work. And this is like an engineer for Porsche. And he's literally like, sitting there with like the wrong size, but he's like, look, it tightens it because the torque spec is only, 12 Newton meters or something like that. And then he takes that same wrench and he's using it as like a hammer on like a part of the engine. And it was just cracking me up because I'm like sitting here thinking like, okay, this is one of the most prestigious engineers of Porsche's design history, building race cars that like destroyed absolutely everything. And this guy looks like he look, like me working in my garage, over there. And it just cracked
Yeah.
me up too, especially because like my foreman, like it, like freak out if like anything, if you don't know the exact size or whatever, it's like the end of the world. And this dude's literally anything he can grab and get into his hand, he's using it as whatever tool it is that he needs. And then he fires off this engine. It's an air cooled cold engine. It's like a 1970 something, and literally goes to redline in this thing and just is sitting there holding it. And even the instructor was like, he's like backing away. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "We got to get it up to temperature." So he fires this old ass engine off and literally just holds it at like 7 grand. 10 seconds into this car firing off, and he's just sitting there like do 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 do, and everybody else is like, this thing's gonna blow up. So no, it was pretty cool. But anyways, yeah. So they started this whole it's heritage. It's the history, and they got some 90% of the all the original 911s ever built are still on the road or whatever that it's an incredibly high number. And so they're trying to promote that. Now the car that I built or refurbished, was a 996.2 GT3, which that's a water cooled. 996 was the first of the water cooled cars. So to me, historical, like a historical or classic car, to me is something. I was working on 996s in the dealership under warranty. So I tell everybody, I'm like, I don't feel like it should be able to be a classic car if I was working on it under warranty. But that just shows our age now. But no, they do this competition. They put it on amongst all the dealerships. And it's basically the cool part there was it's not even about who can spend the most money. That was what the really, not that our guy didn't spend a ton of money, But when we get to the first competition and we're pulling in the car, there's a 959 sitting there, which if you guys know what that is, they made less than 200 of those. That's like the halo car of Porsche. There's a 964 RS, like a real RS, a European RS, 964 RSA, a 930. Just this, like, I mean, we're talking pinnacle car after pinnacle car after pinnacle car. That the car just getting a couple parts on their car cost as much as our car, plus the restoration that we did to it. And they didn't. They to me, I did it all based off of like how cool the car. I'm like, oh, that car's going to beat us. That car's going to beat us. They're cooler than we are for sure. But they did it based off of the amount of work that was done on the car, how good the work was done, how the car looked. As far as taking care of it. And I tell people all the time, they spent maybe 30 seconds to a minute on what I had done as far as like the engine work and all that stuff. But dude, they spent 15 minutes going over paint work and all that. So really, our detail guy, Kyle at Specialized Detail. This guy is amazing, and his work is the work that did it because they spent far more time nitpicking paint and all that kind of stuff than they did. I mean, an engine's an engine, right? Like you can start it, and if it starts, because literally what they had me do was start it, let it idle, and then rev it to redline a couple times. Made sure it didn't blow up. Made sure it started. Made sure it wasn't leaking, and made sure it didn't make any kind of weird noises.
And what
Now
kind
that
of
was
engine
the
work did you do on it? Was it like a full rebuild or?
so we didn't have to rebuild the engine. It's on my page. We dropped the engine out, stripped everything off of it, replaced all of the usables, basically your rubber hoses, seals, gaskets,
Yes,
anything
gotcha.
like that. Any kind of sensors that we could get that needed to be repaired. I tried to replace almost every sensor we could get. The Mesger engine, which is the pinnacle of Porsche engineering excellence, in my opinion. That engine is bulletproof, bro. Like literally, those things are invincible. Now it was a motorsports engine when they started putting it into street cars, and so trying to get a lot of these sensors and stuff when you would try to go into PET, which PET is the Porsche parts, program or Porsche parts where we order our the catalog. Most of them said contact Porsche Motorsports. And then when you contact Porsche Motorsports, because they're two entirely different entities, even us as a Porsche dealership, we only get a 20% discount from Porsche Motorsports North America. Porsche Motorsports is one thing, and Porsche, the company, is a completely different thing. A lot of
Yeah.
those sensors and stuff aren't available. You did have to know variations and generations. I did use knowing that engine was in the cars up to 2011. We went up to different car and looked for that same sensor out of different cars. Porsche being a company, and like we said, everybody, it goes back to money. If you can use one sensor and you can put it in, your base model 986, but you can also put it in a Carrera GT, they're going to use that sensor if it's usable.
For
So,
sure.
finding that sensor in other models where it did say that it was available because they had changed the part number, that was a big part of it too, was being able to like replenish or, just all of that stuff. I did not have to open that engine up for any reason. There was no reason to. That car had 12,000 miles on it. Now they're like track miles. Like this dude literally is a track nut. He bought this car just to take it to the track, so it wasn't like a low mileage, just been putted around. Like it was 12,000 miles of track miles.
That's
But those
hard.
engines and
Dang.
Porsche engines are just. I mean, dude, we build like invincible engines until they start putting like Audi engines and everything, and then now they're just getting repaired like
Hey,
crazy and replaced.
I think the V8, the twin turbo V8s, I did an RS7 the other day, and it came straight from Porsche factory. So I don't know how much of it's Audi.
Yeah, well,
They
that
have,
one it still has an EA888 number to it, which that's an Audi number.
maybe they did a little collaboration on that thing,
So
but
so I was told that is a Porsche engine, but like I said, when you look at the engine designation, it's an Audi designation. So if you go back to your 924, no, I'm not talking. I'm just giving you crap, bro. Like
I know.
Porsche and Audi and Volkswagen, and I love these people. They're like, Porsche's just a Volkswagen. They've been hearing that. They don't know like what Volkswagen it is or any of this stuff. They don't realize that Ferdinand Porsche was actually the designer for the original Beetle. So yeah, even if Porsche 911 was based off of a Beetle, which it wasn't, that was from Ferdinand Porsche, right? And then Porsche, the Porsche, the automotive group does own. I mean, I'm sorry, Volkswagen, automotive group does own Porsche, right? But you know who owns Volkswagen, the automotive group? Porsche Financial Holdings. Like it, I love this. I love this, having this argument with people that are just regurgitating what they've seen, and they're trying to talk crap because Porsche is not a real,
Regurgitate.
or I'm sorry, there's Porsche. Porsche isn't a real, that's not a real exotic car or whatever. To be an exotic car, it has to lose half of its value as soon as you drive it out of the dealership, and it has to be broken down the entire time you own it. So no, dude, I'm not Audi. I won't lie. We have seen way more engine issues since switching over to a lot of the Audi engines, but at the same time, that's been like since COVID, and we have seen issues with even the Porsche, the true Porsche engines have been having a lot of issues also. So, and
I
I
mean, every
don't say that
manufacturer is
just
having engine issues. Even Toyota's
I
got
think
an engine
it
issue.
goes back to you got to make money, right? Like you got to make money. So it all goes back to the bean counters, and the internet is going to like take this and tear it apart. That I'm saying that Porsche engines have a have a problem. All engines break, like they will, like that's just in the way it works. There is a chance of it breaking down. Our percentage of major failure versus, I would say, a lot of other manufacturers is really low. But when you came from, like I said, dude, 997, like 997 generation, so 2005 up to 2011, those engines like never broke to a certain extent. The 997.1s did have issues. 997.2, the first of the DFI engines, man, pretty much bulletproof. So I guess it's just being around and seeing the variations and all the engines and stuff. So no, but I do. When I go to the dealership, to the main side now, to the main shop, and I walk in, and there's like 5 different V8s on the ground, or V6s, like I'm pulled out of Cayennes and Panameras, and I'm like, what? This was never ever a thing before. I'm like, these dang Audis, man. They're the Audi engines everywhere. But guess what? It's making the dealership a bunch of money. So
I was gonna
right,
say
like
it
that's
keeps it keeps the doors open.
yeah, yeah, no, for
Job
sure.
security.
Yeah. So, but no, yeah. So the classic program, man. So yeah, no, they do a lot to promote it. They definitely need to, and they've been working on it for years. They as far as parts availability and stuff, that's really where we still run into a big problem. They started reproducing blocks, which is crazy because I've needed a block like one time ever when I've needed sensors and O-rings and these super generic normal parts. You need those at a far higher rate. But I mean, I guess for like the prestige, saying you're reproducing this block in magnesium or whatever, just like a 2JZ or like an RB or something like that. So I don't know, man. It's awesome. I love it. I mean, I love working on the classics because like I said, to me that is Porsche. Like that's Porsche. They make four-door cars because they need to make money. They make all these other cars because they're Porsche. So
Yeah.
and I tell people that all the time too. I'm like, they'll ask me, even my own clients, and I do work on some like turbo GTs and stuff if they really want me to. But basically, if anybody asks me a question, I say, does it have a set of doors after the front doors? And if it's got more than two sets of doors, two doors, then PPB doesn't work on those. Those go over to the other shop.
PV.
Hey, I know you told me you want to talk about one more, kind of wrap up here, but I want to touch on one more thing. You mentioned you want to talk about the relationship with salespeople and management and how that's helped you in the shop.
Yeah, so I see all the time, and I'm not calling names or anything. It was one of the podcasts I think you guys had out the other day, and the guys were kind of, and it may have been, who knows? It just came across my feed. I don't know, but the
POV.
guys were they were kind of
POV.
complaining about salespeople. Salespeople don't know what they're talking about. You shouldn't have to deal with salespeople. And look, like I was telling you earlier, man, do they have the skill set that we have? No. But do most of us have that skill set that they have? The gift of gab. Can we talk? And personally, I love talking to the clients and stuff. I
Yeah.
like talking to the service advisors. I think it's an enjoyable part of what we do, and it's easier to when you're doing that, that game of telephone, when even when there's a problem, like when the customer comes in. I mean, how many times have you gotten an RO that was like, car makes, clunking noise from, who knows, it doesn't even tell you where it's from. And then you start digging into it, and it's like a squeak from like the rear hatch when they're opening it, or something like this. So our ability to be able to talk to the customer, even if it's not face to face, through text or through whatever, really helps us out a lot. I prefer to just kind of, uh, not to say it this way, but to go around the advisor now. With what I do, it is a little bit different because I am more providing like a knowledge base of like what I know about performance parts and all that stuff, directly to the customer versus the advisor asking me about how much boost does this tune provide? And then he gives them a number, and that number, everybody, it's changed. I told him 23. Well, he tells them 25, and then they go look at the website, so on and so forth.
Yep.
So being able to talk to the customer and being able to talk to your salesperson, because who sees more people every day that are buying the cars that you work on than the salespeople? They're the ones that they're the very first ones that run into these people all day long. So if you build a relationship with the salespeople, or sales advisors, you're not having to worry about trying to feed yourself when you're trying to. So we could, well, pretty much almost all of my clients, come to me directly. But even when I was in the shop, the main shop, and I was really kind of starting this all off, getting people that were bringing their cars to you specifically over and over and over again, and asking for you, and especially when it's coming from the salespeople and stuff. Now this is how you kind of transition into getting to do the kind of work that you want to do. You're not having to do all this random stuff and get fed stuff by CDK and all that. You don't ever have to tap into CDK or a dispatch system if you've got people asking for you by name, daily. So if you want to start controlling the kind of work that you want to do, to me, building a good relationship with the customer and building a good relationship with your sales team, your finance guys, the finance guys, who they have to go into the finance guy's office. And now, so you've got at our dealership, I don't know, we've got 10 salespeople, 15 salespeople. There's like 3 finance people, right? And I say guys, they're not all guys. But so now you've gone from 15 down to like 3 or 4. So if you've got those guys and they're happy with you and you do good work for them, they send somebody to you, and then that person comes back happy and tells them that they're happy and they want to continue to buy cars. You're getting fed this work directly. It's getting siphoned down to you, and you get to start controlling the kind of work that you do. And you can tell these people, like, look, man, like if somebody tells you that salespeople, because a lot of our salespeople will call me directly or direct a customer because they get a car, the car does something strange. Who's usually the first person, at least with like Porsche, they've built the rapport with the salesperson. So they get this car, they've had this car for a short period of time. Something happens, even when they get a flat tire on the side of the road, man, they'll contact the salespeople to help them out. Well, if those salespeople are then directing them to you or coming to you and then redirecting them around, and you're helping them out, you're doing them a solid, the salespeople a solid, because you're keeping that customer happy with them, which keeps that customer coming back. And then you're also helping yourself because those salespeople and so on and so forth are now feeding people directly to you. So when work is slow and you're having to worry about, there's 10 tickets and 20 guys. I don't even worry about how many tickets there are. I don't even know what's going on over there, man. I just have my own clientele base. Like, they'll ask me, like, I just tell my advisors or ask my advisors. I redirect my clients to them, and I'm like, hey, we need to get these people set up at this time. We get set up at this time. I'll be here then. I won't be here then. So if you want to start trying to control and do the work you want to do and not have to worry about work coming to you, you need to make a relationship with these people rather than bashing these people. And just like we were talking about earlier, everybody has a different talent. Everybody has a different ability. So just because they're able to make their money by talking to somebody versus you having to work with your hands, that doesn't mean that they're dumber than you necessarily, or whatever. You guys just have 2 different skill sets. And if you can work your skill set in and start talking to people, I can tell you that, at least with me, the amount of physical work that I've had to do to the amount of like talking and stuff that I do now, they're kind of like, it's kind of doing this number where, like, I was telling you, I spent a lot of time talking to clients, talking to companies, talking to parts things, doing all that stuff versus having to spend all my time, like breaking my knuckles open, doing all this kind of stuff. So I just promote and I recommend, and I did this when I was a trainer, rather than trying to, plus, like we were saying earlier, if the whole dealership is happy, if everybody's working together, everybody wins, bro. Like, that's just
Yep.
how the world works.
Mhm.
If everybody can work together and everybody can succeed together, then everybody's, they're doing better together. So rather than like having factions and everybody fighting against each other, even in the shop and even against sales, it shouldn't be, in my opinion, service against sales, service against financing against sales. Like, if you guys just all like work together, then everybody succeeds as a whole. And I know it sounds like, happy la la land or whatever, but I promise you, it can work, and it does help, and it works to everybody's advantage, because a salesperson sells somebody a car, that car breaks, but I can fix that car immediately, or tell the salesperson it's not really broken. All we got to do is like, oh, look, all you got to just change this setting or something like that. Well, now this client isn't upset because their car just broke down. Oh, it was just a misunderstanding. They fix it. Well, guess what? They're going to come back and buy another car and another car and another car. So, and now you've done that salesperson solid. Not to mention the salespeople, at least where I'm dealing with, I mean, they have spiffs. If you help them sell cars, which, dude, as a technician, I do help my salespeople sell cars. Guess what? Usually they'll throw you a bone and take care of you because you're taking care of them. So I just think rather than just us bashing everybody, if everybody would see what other people's talents are. Now, am I saying that they're all good? No. But is every technician worth crap? No. So I mean, it's just the way the world works. But I can promise you, whatever one person that's watching in the dealership or whatever, as far as this, that wants to listen, they're gonna go ahead of those guys that are bashing the salespeople. And if they would just learn to work with them, it will give them so much more work and let them control that work.
You got to be friends with the hands that feed you. Like the customer bringing in the food, they might give you a little scoop, a little oil change, or like a little tire rotation. But then the advisor is supposed to give you a little bit more than that. So they bring you the big spoon. So you can't bite the big spoon. You got to treat it well so it can treat you well. And then everybody win.
Yeah, exactly, man. And like, do we all have to be friends? No, but like I was saying, but if you work together, just work together, and everybody gets more out of it. And it's the same. I hear a lot of the guys, even at my shop, bashing certain advisors. Man, do I get along with every single advisor? No, but if you can build a rapport and build a relationship with them, then they'll, like so in the beginning when it was a lot of the guys don't want to do the aftermarket stuff. This stuff doesn't fit right. It does. Heaven forbid you have to like take something and bend it slightly or something like that. So they knew that the advisor would make money by having us do the install of exhaust system. They knew that I was the one that wouldn't complain about doing installation of said exhaust system, and they would bring that to me. Well, guess what? Well, now, we did your exhaust, but also your ride height's not right. We can do an alignment here. Oh, did you know that there's like an intake system? We can do a tune. Boom, 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 boom. You start you take one thing, you take something small, and you start building on top of that. But sometimes you gotta get kicked in the balls, and you gotta take that. You gotta like take that law, what you think is a loss, and turn it and just make it into something, and continue to work it, make it work for you. And I think Curtis is probably what you do. I'm sure you do a lot of the work that people they don't want to do, and I'm guilty of it too, especially back when you're doing a campaign for replacing some part that's an absolute nightmare. And I'm like, no, I don't want to have any part of that. Send that to somebody else. Well, that person and I've seen this a lot of times, the person that takes that and masters doing that all of a sudden is making tons of money off of that. And I can tell you, because we do a lot of customer pay work, the work that I hated doing on these cars whenever it was warranty, guess what's the easiest thing to sell now that the car is out of warranty? Because you know exactly what's wrong with the car, you know where the failure areas are, and you know what it takes to fix it. So the stuff that was a nightmare to me, that I used to get so annoyed when that car would come in under warranty, now I'm like, oh, did you know, by the
Yeah,
way, and
gravy.
just being, oh, if it hasn't failed now, it's going to fail soon, like, and dude, you turn it into like that's where you make the money, because you know that it's a problem area. So I lost you.
I ain't gonna lie, Kurt. We can't hear you.
Okay, okay, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. There we go. I was say building the relationships with customers and salespeople and stuff like that is, you're supplying work for yourself. You're building a brand for yourself. You're building a name for yourself. And you couldn't have said it better, is all those things lead to you having your own clientele, making your own money, having people come back, ask for you for everything. That's awesome. You're setting a perfect example of how it should be done. Is exactly what you're saying. Is you don't have to be everyone's friend, but you just got to get along and help everyone out, scratch some backs, and get yours back scratched along the way. But
I can tell you, this may be the first time I've ever been told I was setting a good example, man. I get accused of a lot of things, and setting a good example is not one of them usually.
well, hey, sometimes you got to stand out a little bit to set a good example. I recognize it because I know it's what it takes to be good at your job. It knows what it takes to be a reliable technician, for people to want to come to you with things. And sometimes you got to do things like this, and it's not for everybody, but it's worked for you, and it works for me, and it works for, the three of us here. So keep it up, man. You're setting a good, like I said, you're setting a good example for a lot of young techs out there. And I'll kind of hand it over to Jay here at the end, wrap us up, and see if you have any more questions or close this thing down.
Brandon, where can any follower or any viewer on this channel find you to see that good example that you set? So go ahead and shout yourself out.
So I'm under Perfect Performance brand, and it's like perfect underscore performance underscore,
PPB.
but I think it's PPB. I like to go by PPB. I say okay. I call myself PPB because it's funny. That's why I have people all the
It's
time
slick.
asking me why I'm talking in third person. Well, I do a lot of things because it's funny, man. Like I at least I find it comical, and I don't really give a crap if you find it comical. You know,
Not
in
taking yourself
general.
too seriously.
Yeah, dude. Like, and that's why my videos and stuff, if you've ever watched them, and like Curtis and I were talking about earlier, I'm not gonna go in and edit, bro. I'll edit if I'm like cussing or something like that. But like I say, I do it live. If my finger's in the shot or I like film the wrong thing, sometimes I'll say the wrong stuff and I'll come back and I'll fix it, or I'll even put down in the little, the captions down low that this was wrong. Here's what it should actually be. These videos, because I grew up watching these these shows on, and I don't even know if they're on Saturday morning anymore, but it used to be like, two guys garage or whatever, and they're like, okay, when we get back, we're gonna have this engine rebuilt, and like,
AutoNation.
huh?
I think I know what you're talking about. AutoNation, like on YouTube and stuff.
Well, so whenever I'm old, YouTube didn't start till I was. This was back on like what was the? I don't even remember what the channels were. On cable TV. But I used to get so excited because they were building there's a couple different shows, but they'd be building the import car to make 180 horsepower, or building the hot rod, and they're if you watch those and think that that's actually how it works, and I guess now YouTube and a lot of these guys on YouTube, they edit these videos and stuff where it's just like perfect world, and it's not, bro. Like we get messed up all the time, like I'm always punching, like slipping off and hitting something or dropping a wrench or picking the wrong size or take something off that I'm like, oh crap, I'm on the completely wrong side of the car. I won't even lie, I've done that before. You get so involved in it, you're so like trying to get things going, and the next thing you know, by the time your brain kind of comes back, you're like, oh crap, like I just completely have to redo everything that I just did. So no, all my videos are it's just me doing it live. There's no actually, I was going to say, because is this maybe the first time you've ever seen my face, Curtis? I don't know. A lot of people have never seen my
Yeah, I was
face.
gonna say I don't think I don't
No,
think anyone is. I have
no,
never seen it before.
I try to keep and that's why I was kind of like, man, I was like, I don't know. I was like, almost thought about telling you to like blur it out because it's just, I just don't want to like, I mean, you don't have to, but it's funny because people will come to the shop to meet me and they will literally walk right past me and go walk up. And every single person says, you don't really look like what I was thinking you looked like, which I don't know what they thought I was going to look like,
I don't know how you going.
um,
You don't know how to
but
feel about
no,
that.
so it's under PPB, man, and like I said, it's all the Porsche video, nothing but Porsche stuff, building cars, setting up track stuff. Yes, a lot of exhaust installs. I do a lot of that. Do a lot of alignments and stuff. But full meth injection. You cannot say meth. I got kicked off of
I was
Instagram
about to say
for
full
3
meth and
months.
stuff.
Yeah, I said, you know what methanol injection?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well,
You were
Yeah,
I
like
yeah.
said
you
meth. I
said
said
straight
meth,
meth,
and
and I
it
was like,
like I
oh.
said meth, and it was the end of the world. They banned me from like everything for 3 months. So yeah, you can't say that, even though it's a real thing. So yeah, it's just me on there, and then like I mean, I try to answer all my DMs as long as people aren't saying like something ridiculous, which I do get some of those. But even on basic questions, man, like I get it. Like I'm not a gatekeeper. Like things that I think are super simple or normal, especially in like the Porsche world, like that. Porsche does a lot. They want to add their own acronyms to everything. Everything is Porsche this and Porsche that and blah 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 blah. And I like it because the more people know, it's like the little star thing. The more the more everybody's into it. I want everybody to be excited, and it doesn't even have to be Porsche. I think Porsche's fantastic. But if people would just be excited about cars now and not these like the car, and I won't say the name, but the car that comes in and like the doors open and flap like wings and makes farting noises, which like that, who gives a crap, dude? That's not car culture. Anything to keep people actually excited about cars and going fast and driving and doing all that stuff. That's kind of really what I want to do, is kind of promote, like not losing that. I don't want to see.
Passion.
I was sitting in a
Promote,
parking lot the
promote
other
the
day, and I was
passion.
trying to figure out what everybody was staring at, and there was some guys. They had stopped walking out of the grocery store. They had stopped, and then they had their Tesla back out of its parking spot and drive to them, which was like 3 parking spots away, rather than just walking like 3 parking spots and getting into the car. And everybody is stopping and like taking pictures and doing all this stuff. And I'm sitting there in like my 911, like my new 911 with the loud exhaust doing all that. Nobody even looks at it, which, like I said, I'm not trying to get you to look at my 911, but I feel like something's lacking when people are not looking at it could be whatever, bro. It could be a Corvette. It could be a McLaren. It could be any of these cars. And where we are kind of now as a car culture is kind of like worrying me as being an old guy. I don't want to see this go away. So that's what I try to promote.
Yeah, we appreciate it. I mean, that's what you love. That's what's on your page. It's your content. It's what you want, and I wouldn't want you to do anything different, and anyone that follows you shouldn't ask you to do anything different. So really appreciate you coming on, sharing your story, sharing your passion. Honestly, that's if I took away anything, is that how passionate you are about cars, how passionate you are about what the connection means between you, the car, the customer, and everyone in between. Is I really appreciate that. Is a little inspiring. So I thank you. Thank you for coming on and sharing that with us.
Yeah, man. Not a problem.
You gave me motivation for tomorrow. But gentlemen, if you don't have anything for me, I have nothing else for you. This has been another episode of the WOT Podcast. We had a wonderful guest today. You can find them at Perfect Performance Brandon on Instagram, aka PPV, man. Thank you for hopping on. Hey, PPV. Thank you for hopping on, ladies and gentlemen. I'll see y'all next time.